There's a new game, and it's tearing the streets up. Lace your boots if you think you can keep up. Bra and panties match with a diva stripped down. Build your character so strong, opponents skip town. But y'all rookies got a lot to learn. You ain't guaranteed fame, what you get you earn. It's a school of hard knocks where you pay your dues. Toughness is measured in your black and blues. Starting small time gyms where the chances are slim. Or rocking a leather belt laced with gold trim. The world title, you got the guts to take it. It's a cutthroat game, very few make it. You in the weak games, man, this ain't you. This is real life passion, THQ. The Legends roster stacked with Hall of Famers. Tough enough to beat even polished gamers. A bunch of superstars, SmackDown and Raw. They ready to fight, we gon' crack down your jaw. I'm your number one choice, man, your boy is sick. With moves so hot, I light up your joystick. Everybody else is lame, dude. They can't see me, I be running the GameCube. Day of reckoning's coming, remember I told you. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. GameCube.
And now, introducing the hottest new tag team in podcasting, George Feast, Johnny Clash, the Game Marks.
Hey everybody, this is George Feast and Johnny Clash, and together we're the Gaming Marks, and you're listening to the Game Marks Podcast. Each week on the podcast, we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly of wrestling video games and tell you if we would play it forever or future endeavor. This week on the podcast, we are playing Day of Reckoning for the Nintendo GameCube. So this was something that you've absolutely played before that I've never touched.
This was the third installment of a WWE game on GameCube, following WrestleMania 18 and 19, though this is technically not a sequel to WrestleMania 19.
Okay.
So this is the start of a brand new series, which is just Day of Reckoning and Day of Reckoning 2. So this game was developed by Yuke's, published by THQ, only for the Nintendo GameCube, and it came out on August 30th, 2004, almost a year from last week.
Wow. What timing?
So this game played like WrestleMania 18 and 19.
Okay.
Just, you could tell by playing it, which you've never played those two, and I'm very excited for you to play those two in the future. Yeah. So I'm not going to get too much into what those games were because we have them coming up eventually. But this game is very similar. They just obviously upgraded what the game looks like, the game features. It actually plays like a combination of the SmackDown games and No Mercy.
Which is why I think I was so comfortable playing it,
right,
having never played it before.
Right, so it looks kind of like SmackDown. Like the graphics are just pretty incredible for the time. It's 2004, and we were used to playing World Tour and No Mercy, where the guys' arms and necks aren't even attached to their bodies.
I mean, and coming from doing arcade, where it's essentially a side-scrolling,
Yeah, so this is a big upgrade. And from playing it, we had entrances where they actually had the entrance theme song of, like, Batista actually had saliva.
Yeah, and you got Pyro. Which was great.
Which looked great. And if you go into the Create a Wrestler, Create a Superstar, if you go into the Create a Superstar, you could bring up the screen, kind of like the SmackDown games now, how you could set the motions at certain points. Okay. So you could bring in the nameplate at a certain taunt, you could bring in the Pyro, and you could just blast Pyro everywhere.
See, I didn't even know that those features were in games that far back. I thought that was a much more modern iteration of.
Yeah, this might be the first. I'll have to check on WrestleMania 19, but I know 18 definitely didn't have anything that cool. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the game itself plays very well. Like I said before, I was really surprised at how intuitive it was. Like if you've played the SmackDown game, if you've played one of the earlier N64 titles, like this felt really, really easy to pick up, really, really easy to play. There wasn't like a massive learning curve. Once you kind of figured out the basic layout of what button did what, you were kind of ready to go.
And that's the thing, the buttons were pretty much the same as the GameCube controller.
Yeah, just the controller itself is shaped differently, so you have to learn muscle memory and where to put your hands. And
the game featured Hell in a Cell, Iron Man, obviously the hardcore matches, which you actually grab the weapons from underneath the ring, not the crowd.
Which is great, not the crowd. Safe crowds in this game.
What I noticed that I never really liked growing up was games now, you're looking at the way it's presented on TV. You're looking at the crowd view. Games like this and games like the N64 games, you're looking at the stage.
Yeah.
which kind of gave it like a little bit of a weird feel because at certain points you'll hit a move and the camera will spin. You'll be in the way of something. They didn't really take that into consideration.
There were multiple times where they did a camera cut and I would
the ref was in the way.
Or like I would clip into, we had a match that we did, the Evolution versus Brothers of Destruction, and in one of the clips it shifted over and one of the camera angles you were just in the Undertaker's body. So that left a little to be desired there, but I mean, the camera cuts were better camera cuts and better camera angles than you would get in like World Tour and Revenge. It was, it was a little more immersive in this game.
I always turn the camera cuts off.
Oh yeah, I did too, but
it's annoying.
We didn't remember to do that this time.
Especially we're using a memory card from like 2002. So the features of this game, kind of like No Mercy, how there was a shop in No Mercy where you would buy the foam fingers and the cheese head and everything. But in this case, you'll buy different entrance stages, different weapons, different gimmicks for your Create a Superstar. And I think the biggest thing was the entrances, meaning the arenas, because you only start with Raw and SmackDown. And if you're like me, WrestleMania 20 is my all-time favorite. It's deep inside my heart as my favorite WrestleMania. I wanted that New York City stage, and you had to unlock it, and it was a lot of money. Make sure
to reach out to @JClash21 or @GameMarksPod to tell Clash why you hate his WrestleMania pick and why he's wrong. So the roster. You want to break down the roster now?
Yeah.
So it's split. So you have SmackDown talent, you have Raw talent, and then you have your Divas, your Legends, and then your NPCs. So I don't know. Should we read through the whole thing? You want to just give me bullet points?
Well, that's the thing. When I played this game growing up, I thought the roster was huge. When we just scrolled through, the roster is not that big.
I mean, compared to other titles at the time, especially coming from the roster of Arcade / In Your House, there's not
six.
There's not a ton of options there. But comparing this roster to the roster from like Revenge or World Tour or No Mercy, this is a small roster in comparison.
Right.
But it's give and take. So you want better animations, you want better graphics, you want more features in the creative. You lose slots on the disc or the cartridge to have extra options in terms of wrestlers, but you gain more creative features, more unlockables, stuff like that.
And that's why I believe there's also not announcers and just songs play in the background.
Just empty tables waiting to be destroyed.
Yeah, we played a game and tables are just empty.
Yeah.
Which is great because you could just grab the chairs and just whack the guy with them. Or tables are actually very easy to break. You got to just put a leg through them and they're done.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of things happening very easily, I think one of my biggest gripes with this game, the SmackDown games, and all the other ones that play like this was just the collision features where if you are even close to your tag team partner on the apron and you do a suplex, you have the chance of knocking over either your own teammate or your opponent's tag partner.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times that we did this where...
Yeah, my biggest gripe with this feature, or if you want to call it a feature, is having a finisher that takes a while to set up and the tag partner runs in and just ruins it for you.
Yep.
That, oh my God, playing through the story mode, trying to win, and that happens.
All right, so your SmackDown talent. You've got Kurt Angle, The Undertaker, John Cena, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Big Show, Charlie Haas, Chavo Guerrero, Hardcore Holly, Rhino, The Bashams, Booker T, RVD, Mark Jindrak. It's a pretty solid roster.
This is probably one of the best rosters they've had in a game ever.
And at the time, a lot of these people were moving up the ranks in WWE. Some of them were already at their peak. So to see where this roster is...
Hardcore Holly.
Absolutely.
It's kind of funny hearing his name in there.
Absolutely.
Then you remember his feud with Brock Lesnar, and you're like, okay, yeah, that was around this time.
It's great. It's crazy to think, though, how, this was considered a mixed roster at the time, where you had upper card, mid card, and low card guys. But this roster is absolutely stacked. It's great.
And this is when Jeff Hardy wasn't there, so this game kind of broke my heart.
Oh, yeah.
And creating him just wasn't the same.
You know what? In the original SmackDown game, I wanted to create Spike Dudley. So you would use, the smallest body possible, Test's head, because you couldn't customize the heads.
I see it.
And then you would just kind of hope that...
right, you just swapped body parts.
It was just like you could pick like the Dudley torso, and like, you know, you could have like the Dudley torso, you could have Triple H's head, and, you know, Chavo Guerrero's bottoms.
Not
and,
to
like,
sidetrack from that, but I wanted Stone Cold in the jorts and t-shirt. They gave you the t-shirt, so to have jorts, I gave him like one of the Divas legs. And he just wore heels. It was a mistake.
Do you remember? Was that in this game?
No.
What that was in the original SmackDown?
All right, just to sidetrack for a second.
Stay tuned for when we do the SmackDown episode, because we will absolutely be doing that.
Yes, we will.
I feel like that might be a portion of what we do in that episode, where we just kind of make ridiculous creations and share them on on social media. Okay, so going back to the roster, the Raw talent, you have The Rock, Triple H, Chris Jericho, Kane, Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, Christian, Val Venus, Garrison Cade, Batista, Matt Hardy, Ric Flair, Chris Lance Storm, Shelton Benjamin, and Edge. Again, very stacked roster, and at the time, this was considered a mixed roster.
This was peak Evolution.
Yeah.
Which, another thing, if you want to think about, this was WrestleMania 20 time, because WrestleMania 20 is the featured WrestleMania in the game. There's no Goldberg. Goldberg was in WrestleMania 19, the game.
Not even
but
as
he wasn't even
unlockable.
Right, and he wasn't even at WrestleMania 19. Which, I get it, it's behind. And now that I'm looking, there's no Brock Lesnar either.
Yeah.
So both of these guys who had the featured match on WrestleMania 20 didn't make it to the game that featured WrestleMania 20.
Why do you think that was? Do we want to get into the politics on this show?
No, we don't.
We'll leave that to the people that are really in the industry.
And the Divas.
Divas. All right. Very, very stacked roster for the Divas. You ready for this clash?
I'm ready.
Molly Holly, Victoria, Trish, Stacy Keibler. And that's it. So, on to the legends.
All right, on to the legends.
Legends, unlockables. You have Andre the Giant, Bret Hart, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Roddy Piper, Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
I don't remember any of those in the game. I just don't think I cared to unlock them. Like, I would have definitely played Bret versus Shawn all the time.
You heard it first on the podcast. Johnny Clash does not care about legends. And you know what? Just for good measure, let's list off the NPCs.
Okay.
You have Mike Chioda, Paul Heyman, Jonathan Coachman, Eric Bischoff, Vince McMahon. So if you play story mode, the first person you see is Vince McMahon.
And then who's the second? Jonathan Coachman.
Jonathan Coachman, telling you that he's got a lot of pull.
In his Samuel L. Jackson Kangol hat.
A lot of pull.
Back to the Divas. 4 Divas in this game?
Yeah.
If you go to 2004 WWE, Trish and Lita had a huge thing.
Yeah.
Jazz. No, I think this was the time of Christy Hemme.
Is this Ivory's on the way out here?
Yeah, she's probably on the way out, maybe even earlier.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things, again, talking about the abilities and the options that you have based on the disc size, the cartridge size. You have to pick and choose. Do you want a more robust roster but sacrifice some of the graphics? Like maybe they put in 1 or 2 more divas, but you lose the ability to have all those arenas. You lose the ability to have the pyros. The song quality maybe goes down. Could you imagine playing this game with like No Mercy quality songs?
And the discs are very small as well. I'm looking at the WrestleMania 19 roster, and it's basically the same other than Lita, Tori Wilson, and Dawn Marie.
Tori Wilson, yeah, that's someone that I'm surprised is not in this.
Kind of funny, Dawn Marie's in the game. Like
EC Dub.
So the soundtrack of this game...
Oh, great.
It's great. It's very repetitive because it's only about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 songs.
It's throwbacks.
Right.
Who doesn't love a good throwback?
If you play 2 or 3 matches, you're listening to the same songs over and over again. And these are the same songs in the menu.
And if you've ever played the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game, there's some crossover.
Public Enemy / Anthrax, Bring the Noise.
I'm pretty sure that was in every game from like 98 to 2006.
And for some reason in 2004 it made a comeback in this game.
Hey, you know what? I'll take it.
There's Showcore or Shootcore, I don't know, I've never heard of them, but the song Bone Cracker and The Angle, which if you play them for me, I'm going to know them, but I don't know these bands particularly. Breathing, Can't Stop. One of my favorites, Breaking Benjamin, Polyamorous, which is the default Creator Wrestler entrance music. I don't think I ever changed it, to be honest, because I like that
You hear
song.
a lot of that if you don't access all of the features when you create your character. If you just immediately breeze through everything, if you're not super into the creative modes and you just want to play the story, you'll be hearing that song a lot.
Yeah, which I'm not complaining. I think this game actually opened the door to me to Breaking Benjamin and Zebrahead, Alone and Falling Apart. Okay, so let's get into the story mode.
Okay.
So WrestleMania 18, no story mode. It's kind of the first one on GameCube, so it's more like a ranking system. Get to the top, get the belt.
Okay.
Which, fine. I get it. It's the first one, kind of like World Tour, feeling it out, seeing what the capabilities are. They don't want to push it. So WrestleMania 19, the story mode is not really a story mode.
Okay.
Which is intriguing, so you'll play it. And for me, I've played this multiple times because it's so out there that it's awesome. And I know you haven't played this, and I'm very much looking forward to the time when we get to 19 so you can play it, because it's not a story mode as where you're backstage talking to Vince and you're walking and you get into a fight with John Cena. You know, it's not like a typical wrestling storyline. I'm going to leave it at that because it involves murdering construction workers and trying to...
That's dark.
and trying to sabotage WrestleMania, which you think you'd be doing opposite in these games, but
Whoa.
But you have your moment at the end. So
That got dark really quick.
So we're going to play it, and it's a long story and a difficult game, but once you beat it, you're going to say, okay, I think I'm going to play this again as a different superstar.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have a difference no matter who you are, unless you're Goldberg, and then the ending's a little different for some reason.
Of course.
But we'll leave it at that. I just want you to play that in its entirety before we get through that game.
Okay, so I'm very excited to play that, but back to the task at hand.
Back to now they finally
Day of Reckoning.
Put in a real story mode. And before we get into that, this episode is sponsored by...
I am the head honcho of Handsome, Johnny Pretty Boy Collins, but because I am incredibly rich and good looking, you can call me by my government name, Johnny Pretty Boy Collins. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you are an ugly, uneducated peasant. Well, listen closely, because I strongly dislike repeating myself. Creative Pro Wrestling has a weekly YouTube series every Monday night at 7 p.m. It's called Cap TV. You might have heard of it. Here, you can find peasants, I mean superstars, like Chris Statlander, Bear Bronson, CPA, Jack Tomlinson, and of course, moi. You can visit youtube.com/createaprowrestling to catch up today. That is all.
So you start off, you walk into Vince McMahon's office, you're the new talent. He wants you to showcase your skills in a dark match.
And if you played like we did, your name is Default.
Your name is Default, and you're wearing a WWE shirt and Triple H 1999 swooshy pants with the white stripe down the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you go through a couple dark matches. Eventually, depending on which brand you choose, either Raw or SmackDown, you go on Heat or Velocity, and you start working your way up there. You start working with Jindrak and Cade. I remember specifically from Raw, and I remember the Bashams from SmackDown. So you're stuck with these guys for a little bit because you're on the lower card.
Okay.
Eventually you get to work like Haas and Benjamin and the cool guys. And all right, so on the Raw side, you eventually join Evolution, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean
everyone wanted to join Evolution.
2006, George wanted to be in Evolution.
Yeah.
Didn't have the bankroll for it.
But on the other side, on SmackDown, you join The Undertaker's new ministry.
Oh, it's a throwback.
A throwback, right.
Because Ministry's long gone by 2006.
Long gone.
Yeah.
So pretty much it's a typical story of you're the standout in the group. The story is parallel on each side. We're on SmackDown. You're the standout of the group. Members start getting kicked out one by one, and eventually it's down to either you and The Undertaker or you and Triple H. And now...
So you either break out the shovel or you break out the sledgehammer.
Right. And now they feel threatened by default.
I mean, who doesn't feel threatened
look
by
at those
default?
pants. So, at WrestleMania 20, it's an Iron Man match between you and The Undertaker, or you and Triple H. Which, out of anyone in these games, that's pretty much who I would pick anyway.
Yeah.
To be in the main event of the story mode.
Yeah. That's a solid choice in terms of like who in the pecking order, who do you consider at the top of the card?
Yeah, I mean, you could do JBL or, I don't know.
Is Cena at the top of the card in 2006 yet?
This is 2004, so...
Oh, 2004.
WrestleMania 20, he only won the U.S. title. Huh. See, this is my favorite WrestleMania. I know every match of it. He beat the Big Show for the U.S. title, so he's not there yet.
Oh, and this is like single strap, Big Show, buzzed head.
Yes.
This isn't bald, phenomenal shape 2019 Big Show.
But like we said, this is also not exactly WrestleMania 20 time because some people aren't in it.
Yep.
So it came out a little after. It came out in August. Yes.
So what happens after you beat either Triple H or The Undertaker in that Iron Man match? Is there like a cutscene at the end?
So when the game ends, the ref hands you the belt. Triple H points at you and says, "How dare you?" But you think that's what he's saying because there's no actual voice acting in the game. This whole celebration at the end is very awkward with no announcers putting it over or really any reaction other than a crowd noise, which is pretty generic, and the background music, which for some reason changes from your entrance music just to polyamorous. And they kind of do the Eddie Ben here on the Raw side. If you go up on the top rope and hold the World Championship up, you come back and Batista's in the ring. He's clapping, you do the hug, and you celebrate.
So that's the ending for the Raw storyline. What about the SmackDown storyline?
Charlie Haas is there waiting for you in his bright green and blue pants. Yes, the Charlie Haas.
So you get no shade against Charlie Haas, but I feel like comparing Batista to Charlie Haas, you're recreating.
He's the world's greatest tag team.
One half of the world's greatest tag team.
He has the best entrance music in the game, which I always stole.
I mean, hey, there has to be a reason behind it. I'm not here to judge, but I mean, actually, I am here to judge. It's the whole fucking point of this podcast. But I mean, for me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense to me.
What really doesn't make sense is, okay, so the game ends there. You go run credits, game over. When you get to Day of Reckoning 2, the story continues, but there's no SmackDown side.
Oh, so it just continues assuming that you picked Raw.
You pick Raw, and from what I remember, which we're going to play through this story too, it still has to do with Evolution.
Okay.
And something with like a missing championship belt.
Okay. I mean, I got to be honest with you. For all these games, we've talked about it before, for all these games that I haven't played and I knew existed but either didn't have a console or I was just not in the mode to play retro games because I had already moved on to the next generation. I'm excited to go back because some of these storylines, and you'll see when we go through even some of the games that you haven't played, some of these storylines get a little risky, don't age very well. There's a lot of things that are said that are not very PC. And, you know, when the time comes, maybe we'll touch upon that, but we'll try to keep it as friendly as possible. Like I said, there were a lot of things that were not they're very off color for the time. So,
speaking of, we just saw the reveal of the 2K20 cover a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Featuring Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns.
Yes, the big dog and the man.
So, everyone's making a big deal. First female cover on a video game. Let us correct you right now.
Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen.
The cover of Day of Reckoning on Nintendo GameCube features Triple H.
Check.
Randy Orton.
Check.
Small on the right side.
Yes.
But huge on the left side. Trish Stratus.
Huh.
I
guess we should face the facts. That's wrong. All this hype around this cover is wrong.
And we're going to let them know it.
It's crazy.
And not only that, the cover of Day of Reckoning 2 is Stacy Keibler.
Featured predominantly in the center of the packaging with other people faded out in the background.
Yeah, I would love to hear the people's excuses on this.
Well, so
It's just because it's Becky.
what I would think is that people are going to say, oh, well, no one's been featured predominantly solo on the cover. Well, additional newsflash. Neither is Becky Lynch. She shares the cover with Roman Reigns. This isn't news, guys.
Not news.
This is not breaking news. This is something that's been happening for
2004.
decades.
Okay, so let's get into the ratings of this game. Just a few off the bat. Game Informer rated this game an 8.25 out of 10.
That's good.
Game Pro, 4.5 stars out of 5,
Okay.
which is really good. GameSpot gave it 8.2 out of 10.
Okay.
GameSpy gave it 4 stars out of 5.
Rest in peace.
And IGN gave it 8.3 out of 10.
All right.
So overall, it's around the 8s.
Yeah,
which is
it's
pretty
got
damn
a good rating, yeah. But here's the most important rating of all. Where do you sit? This was your game. You were very excited to play this game. You could not wait for me to experience this game for the first time. I know where I am sitting. Would you play it forever, or would you wish this game the best of luck in its future endeavors?
Okay. I will play it forever.
Okay.
Because not only is this game the ultimate nostalgia for me for my favorite time in wrestling, my favorite WrestleMania, it's the best one on GameCube, hands down.
Okay.
Because 19's good, 18's good. This one came out and it was mind-blowing because of the story mode. I think the Day of Reckoning 2 story mode was a little too much. It took a little bit longer to beat. It was kind of more corny, if you ask me. The roster was upgraded, but they didn't really upgrade much after this. So I think for me, if we're going back to GameCube, if I'm plugging it in, if I want to play a wrestling game, it's going to be this one.
Okay.
And will you play it forever or future endeavor?
Ooh, I like that. That was good. Okay, so you're gonna be mad at me. I am going to future endeavor this, but only because I feel like there are so many similarities between this and the SmackDown series.
True.
That I feel that the SmackDown series had a more robust roster, had a more robust creative suite, had a bigger presence in terms of the gaming community, but I'm kind of torn because in terms of your options for GameCube, this is the best one.
Right. But if you're not going to take out the GameCube and play it, then
exactly.
I get it.
So in the grand scheme of things, it gets a future endeavor. If we're just talking about games for the GameCube, this is a play it forever.
Yeah. So overall, we're split.
We're split. It's a 50-50 split. And
which we're going to have in the future as well.
That's, it's the point of this podcast. It's to play games that we haven't played before. It's to give you guys the experience to hear our opinion of a game that either you have played, haven't played, are interested about playing, just so you know if it's worth your time. But we did skip over one very important thing, and that is the third round of our Clash at the Feast tournament.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, due to the technical difficulties that we had in the first episode, we then later went back and redid our first match in WCW versus NWO World Tour. We then had our match in WWF The Arcade, and now we have had our WWE Day of Reckoning match. Would you like to tell the listeners the match type that we picked?
We picked the brutal, the death-defying,
The unforgiving
bra and panties match.
Ooh, shivers, chills down my spine when you said it.
Something down my spine. I don't know what. So we picked from the huge roster of divas.
Yes.
You were Victoria.
Yes.
And I was Stacy Keibler.
Yes. With the non-copyright music.
With the non-copyrighted No Kid Rock Legs version of ZZ Top music. which Victoria had her music. It was
Yes.
pretty good.
She ain't the lady to mess with.
So let's run through this match, this out there match stipulation. The entrances, cool. They were the same entrances the Divas usually use for the game.
A little off character.
Right, like Victoria came out in heels, and it's obvious they're wearing something different because it's a bra and panties match.
Yeah, and like the animations, the animations at the top of the ramp for Victoria, like she's supposed to be like this dark, brooding, evil character, and she came up there and she's like striking a pose and strutting her stuff. And again, this is just another one of those things where you look back at 2019.
This would never be in a game now.
Where were we? How far have we come? Why was this in the game? I think that's actually part of the reason why we decided to play this match is because very few games had this. And if you played the games back in the day, it was something that you're like, I got to play at least one of these. And now you never have the opportunity to play these.
So to take off the top and the bottom of the said diva.
Button mashing.
It was button mashing after... I mean, the whole game is button mashing if you think about it.
That's true.
You literally pulled off their clothes like it's a piece of rubber.
But you have to strike a pose first.
Yes, you either gyrate your hips or blow a kiss.
Again,
this is...
very out of character for some of the wrestlers. But man, wow.
So the winner...
Johnny Clash.
Stacy Keibler got the win over Victoria. And that's another one for me in the Clash of the Feasts.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, so we talked about the game. We gave it our rating. You won, regrettably, the match this week. We've rolled the ad for Cap. I think it's time that we take it home, Johnny. What do you think?
Let's take it to the bridge.
All right, so... as always, guys, you can follow us on social media at GameMarksPod. He is Johnny Clash at JClash21 on all forms of social media. I am George Feast. Hashtag anything is feasible. Thank you, CPA. At George Feast on all forms of social media. And we are, again, the Game Marks Podcast. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. And remember, guys, this is the podcast by Marks for Marks. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And, Clash, why don't you say something stupid?
Cilantro!